Yo, welcome back to another video. I know it's been 3 weeks since my last what if, but it's just been like that. I just haven't felt like making one. But I'm back and I'm ready to cook. I'm gonna start dropping parts so that way I'm not forced to drop full movie versions all the time, and then because I just don't have time for it. I'm gonna be honest. Before I get into this video, I do want to thank Weeb for helping me figure out what direction I wanted to go in this what if. It means a ton to me, bro, and thank you. So let's get into this. The story begins on the night of the Ninetales attack, and we're at the scene where Minato and Kushina are both impaled by the Ninetales. Unfortunately, in this timeline, Hiruzen doesn't make it in time before they die. However, before Kushina and Minato die, Kushina mentions to Minato that she's worried. She doesn't know how Naruto's going to deal and learn the fact and understand everything that's going on with him, since he is the last and final descendant of the fairies. He will be the fairy king because he's the last one to be alive. And Minato, he doesn't really have any sort of comforting thing or any way to prove to Kushina that everything will be alright, but he just tells her, I believe in Naruto. I believe he can do this. And even though it wasn't much, it did calm Kushina just barely. And so Minato finishes his Reaper Death Seal and seals both of their chakras inside of Naruto. And so then a couple hours later, a little bit later, not a couple hours, Hiruzen makes it to them and sees that they're dead and that their son is there with the seal on his stomach. He understands what's happened. He understands that Minato has sealed the Ninetales inside of his own child. Hiruzen then decides he will raise Naruto until Naruto's old enough to live on his own, because obviously an infant cannot live alone. And so Hiruzen, he raises Naruto for the next 4 years before putting Naruto in the house and continuing on. Then, on the day of Naruto's 5th birthday, the villagers decide they want to attack him. They're like, you're the demon who took my family away from me, and they chase Naruto around. Eventually, Naruto manages to lose them, but he just keeps running. He ends up out of the village, and he just keeps running and running and running. He doesn't really have a real direction. He just is running in a random direction. But the thing is, it is actually his lineage, the fairy part of him, that was kind of guiding him towards this direction. Because he keeps running for the next several hours until he randomly makes it to a tree. A really big and massive tree. And this tree, he's like, wow, this tree looks awesome. And that's when Naruto makes it to the base of it and he starts climbing. Slowly but surely he's making progress, slowly climbing up the tree. Eventually he makes it to the top where he sees a man sleeping. And that's when he kind of just stands there and just looks at him. Eventually Naruto then sits down and it's just like, who are you? And that's when the man actually wakes up. It's just like, there's a kid here? What's going on? That's when Naruto's like, I don't know, I just saw this big tree and I decided to climb up it. And Naruto then explains that, my name is Naruto Uzumaki! Believe it! And so the guy's just like, oh, your name is Naruto Uzumaki? Oh, could you be Kushina's son? Naruto's like, I don't know my parents. They both died when I was born. And he's like, I see. I see now. I understand. Anyways, Naruto Uzumaki, my name is Jayon. And, I believe it was fate that brought you here to me today. Because there's a lot of things you need to learn, since I understand who you are now. And Naruto's like, fate? Who am I? You know who I am? And that's when Jayon tells him, yeah, I know who you are. I know your parents. They were Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. He's like, the 4th Hokage was my father? And Jayon's like, I don't know if he was Hokage, but I do know he was your father. And Naruto's just kind of mind-boggled. And that's when Naruto asks him, he's like, so wait, what are you exactly supposed to teach me? And that's when Zion actually explains to Naruto that The fairies are a race that used to exist long ago. However, they eventually all died off. They were killed. They outlived some of their lifespans, and the rest have been killed during the Ten Tails rampage when it first happened. At the time, the Fairy King was doing something else, and when he came home to see all of his fairies dead, he ended up taking his own life. So all that remained was the Uzumaki clan, who then was also eventually wiped out due to their sealing jutsu prowess that they had gained due to their fairy lineage. Because one of the fairies had blessed a human. But however, that blessing has continued down through the generations, and you're the last son of the fairies, really, because you're the last person with any sort of fairy lineage. And so the tree has chosen you to be its next fairy king, because there's nobody else to choose. And Naruto's like, I don't really understand. And that's when Jaion's just like, you don't really need to, you just need to know that you're the last of a people. And that's why you were brought here, so you could understand who you are and your abilities. And Naruto's like, I guess if you won't beat me then. And Jaion's like, beat you? Why would I do that? And Naruto's like, I don't know. They keep telling me I'm a demon and that I should never have been born and stuff like that. And that's when Jaion actually senses a power inside of Naruto. He's like, oh, I understand. The Nine Tails was sealed within this boy. And so he then just tells Naruto, you got nothing to worry about. But I think today's been a long day for you, so you should probably go get some rest. I do have a bed somewhere. Let me go find it. And so Jaion then walks away and ends up, finding the bed, putting it together, getting it ready, and putting Naruto in the bed so he can get that good rest. And Naruto really needed it. He was bruised, beaten, he was tired. He just needed that rest. And just his adrenaline dropping down just a slight little bit managed to, just conk out Naruto straight up. And so this is when Jaion, during the free time of Naruto being asleep, decides to get his game plan in motion. He knows one of these days, very soon, Naruto is going to receive his spear as the Spirit King. And as the Fairy King. And so he understands that before he can use the spear anyway, Naruto should learn how to defend himself without it. Because if Naruto's completely reliant on the spear, if he loses access to that spear somehow, some way, it is over for Naruto. So Jaion ends up getting this training regimen for his style of fighting, the fox style. And so then, after getting all that ready, he decides, alright, this is the game plan. Naruto will do this, this, and that. And he also has a technique that requires chakra, but it's a null chakra type. It's yin or yang release, I'm not sure which, but it's not a Kekkei Genkai. If you know how to use it, you can use it. And he plans on teaching that to Naruto before the training is done. And that is Hunter Fest. Anyways, continuing on, Bon decides he's going to just start off with the basics of basic chakra control. And Bon explains that Naruto will soon notice some things starting to appear on his back, and those will be wings. And before he is allowed to end up leaving this tree, he will have to learn how to conceal them, because it will be very dangerous if people find out what he is. And so, Jaion then proceeds to teach Naruto for the next while. Naruto starts to get really proficient in taijutsu for his age. He's getting smarter. He isn't dumb Naruto in canon, but he's actually pretty intelligent. And so then Naruto ends up asking Bon one day, okay, I think I'm ready. Why am I here and what happened? So Bon then re-explains the entire situation. And Naruto still doesn't 100% understand, but he understands that he is the last of his kind, and that Jaion is the last person who can teach him. I might be switching between Bon and Jaion by accident, because Jaion is supposed to be an homage to Bon. I apologize if that confused any of you guys. Anyways, so let's continue. So, anyways, throughout the next couple of years, Naruto continues to train. And he became so proficient in the taijutsu that Jayon decided the only thing that could possibly make Naruto better is experience, and he won't gain that at the tree. So Jayon finally lets the tree, well, not lets the tree, but the tree finally deems Naruto is ready and gives him his spirit spear. Jayon then explains that he'll have to figure out most of it by himself. However, for now, his spirit spear will be in Form 2 Guardian until he learns to manifest it into the others. And that will happen when he himself deems he's ready. And that's not a conscious thing, really. It's normally going to be very subconscious, but he genuinely believes that Naruto can do it. We time skip another couple months of Naruto just learning how to play with Guardian and stuff like that, learn how to use it properly, when suddenly you hear big explosions and stuff. And that's when Jayon and Naruto look off the tree and see that the Three Tails is attacking. The Three Tails ends up actually doing significant damage to the Spirit Tree. And so the Spirit Tree, deciding that its only course of action is to absorb Bond into it. Now, the absorption isn't a proper one. It has sealed Bond inside of it so that Bond will be able to heal the tree from the damage it took from one of the tailed beasts. Unfortunately, the Spirit King wasn't there yet to protect the tree. However, hopefully this will never happen again. Eventually, after like a day or two of kind of just being outside of the tree's range, that the Anbu, who have been searching for Naruto for the last few years, trying to find him, just found him randomly in the forest, injured, kind of stuck, and they're like, has he been here the whole time? But we've scoured this area. But instead of questioning things even more, they actually just take Naruto back to the village and bring him to the Hokage's office to show Hiruzen that they have found Naruto. Hiruzen ends up asking Naruto several questions, having to understand what happened. And Naruto, he's understood, since he's now, we'll say, he's currently at the age of 10. He's now gained a significant amount of intelligence, so he knows that he has to play with some nuance here. And so he tells Hiruzen half-truths. So he's never lying, but he's not telling the truth either. Like, he told Hiruzen that he ended up making it into some sort of sealed area, and when the Three Tails went on a rampage nearby, it actually destroyed the seal in the area, and that's why they were able to find him after so long, which technically is true. But then Naruto also explains that he's been trained for years and stuff, and that he thinks he should be able to go to the academy and stuff. And Hiruzen isn't against it, but he isn't for it either. Hiruzen's like, it's going to take a while for you to be allowed to go into the academy because we don't know where you've been or what you've been doing. Sure, you could be telling the truth, but you could also not be. And so Hiruzen decides to have some sort of slow integration into the school life for Naruto. And eventually, Naruto does get situated, A bunch of his classmates were like, wait, is that the kid who went missing all those years ago? And Naruto doesn't tend to really care, He's gained that nonchalance that Jayon had. But he knows that if he wanted to, he could beat anybody in the class. And soon enough, that opportunity actually does arise. Naruto's not allowed to use his weapon, but he then, just bodies Sasuke in a regular a hand-to-hand fight. And Sasuke is like, how did he beat me so easily? And Naruto's like, don't worry about it, you're very strong. I'm just a prodigy. And Naruto doesn't have this just baseless confidence. He knows that he is very good and very strong for his age. And so Naruto just kind of walks with a certain confidence for like the next couple of years until the graduation exams. And during this time, Naruto still has relatively difficult chakra control due to the Ninetales being in the way. However, Naruto still is able to somewhat overcome this due to the fact that he has the fairy's blessing and that he is technically the fairy king. And so Naruto then just continues on with his day-to-day life, and things remain relatively canon until after graduation. The Mizuki situation never happens because Mizuki was never able to convince Naruto because Naruto never failed. Things like that. Overall, the situation remained pretty stagnant. So after Naruto passes the exams, he's put on a team with both Sakura and Sasuke as in canon. But this time around, Naruto is by far the strongest on the team. However, Naruto also has far more patience than he did in canon, so while waiting for the 37 years that he had to wait for Kakashi to pull up, he just waited. He has that patience because it was instilled to him by Jion. Anyways, when Kakashi enters the room, Naruto's just like, "Where were you? Why did we have to wait so long?" But he does it in an extremely polite tone and everything. He's being respectful to his sensei. And Kakashi is just like, "I got lost on the path of life." And Naruto in his head is like, "Man, that's some BS, bro." And so then Kakashi is just like, "Alright, everybody up to the roof." Sasuke's goal is to repopulate his clan and all that. It remains relatively canonical. Until Naruto, whose goal is to replenish his clan. Though Kakashi is just like, oh, he wants to bring the Uzumaki back. But that's not actually the case. What Naruto wants to bring back is the fairies. He wants the return of the fairy race after they all perished when Kaguya had come to Earth. And so then, Kakashi, is asked by Sakura, "What are your dreams like?" and blah, blah, blah. Kakashi's like, "None of your business." Bro, I love that. That was so funny in the anime. I know this is an off tangent, but that shit was hilarious, bro. It was a whole ass womp womp situation, yeah. So then Kakashi's just like, "Don't eat anything tomorrow for breakfast. You will throw it up. And meet at the training grounds at 7 a.m. sharp." So Naruto actually decides to ask Sakura and Sasuke, "Yo, you guys want to go get something to eat before we head home?" And Sakura at first is reluctant, and Sasuke is kind of down for it, but then Naruto is just like, "It's important for us to learn how to bond with each other, because if we're going to be a team, we have to be able to work together." Because, as I said in part 1, that maturity has been instilled into Naruto. And so they all go, they go to Ichiraku Ramen, they eat up, and they're having a good conversation, and their bond has grown, even if it was slightly. The next morning, they all pull up at the training ground at 7 a.m. sharp, and then by 9:30 a.m., Kakashi finally arrives. And Naruto already knows, I'm not going to ask, because I know I'm just going to get a dumb response like last time. So Naruto then looks at Sasuke and Sakura, is like, "Before this starts, we need to figure out some sort of plan, because I know there's going to be some sort of test, and I have a feeling we're about to have to fight him. I don't know what for, but none of us are going to beat him in a 1v1. It is not happening. So let us come up with the game plan before we actually need to." And so Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke, they end up coming with a quick little game plan. And that's when Kakashi is like, "Are you guys done talking?" And they're like, "Yes." And Kakashi explains about the bell test, this, and that. And that's when he ends up just saying, "Alright, 3, 2, 1, go." And the first thing that happens is Sasuke actually ends up attacking Kakashi first, while the other two run and hide. But when the plan was decided, they had not decided on Sasuke attacking. Sasuke purely went to attack Kakashi out of ego, because he doesn't like the fact that he is listening to Naruto. So he's like, "Screw this guy, I don't want to listen to him, I'm gonna go do things my way." Oh boy, was that a mistake, because he just starts to get pieced up by Kakashi with one hand, bro. Sasuke's ego and anger is actually making him inefficient. So he's way worse than he was in canon, where he was calm and collected. He's just he's very predictable and angry, and he's messing up. So Kakashi's having such an easy time fending him off. And that's when Naruto's just like, God damn it, Sasuke. And even Sakura is kind of like, what are you doing, Sasuke? But that's when Naruto's like, alright, well, I'm gonna have to make the best of this and work around him. Sakura, you back me up. You try and get the bells while I team up with Sasuke and try to fight Kakashi. So Naruto goes and starts trying to join in the fight, and he's actually doing solid work. But that's when Sasuke actually attacks Naruto mid-fight, saying, don't get in my way, this is my battle. And like, Naruto's just like, what is your problem? Look, I don't think I'm better than you, but clearly you have some sort of insecurity because you want us to lose. What is your problem, Sasuke? And even like Kakashi kind of just stops for a second. It's like watching the situation unfold. But as Naruto's actually yelling at Sasuke, because as much as Naruto has matured, he still has emotions and he's still a kid, bro. So he's like yelling at Sasuke, and that's when you hear the alarm go off. So then Sasuke actually ends up tied to the post because Kakashi obviously realized that Sasuke was the issue. And so he ties Sasuke to the post, where Sakura actually decides that she's just going to feed him. So that way, once they go back for round 2, things will be a lot easier. And of course, as in canonical fashion, after she feeds him, Kakashi appears going, "You have passed." And everybody's just kind of like, huh? And Kakashi then explains the real reason behind the bell test and all that. And they're actually kind of annoyed, but they get it. Like, if you're working in a 4-man team and stuff like that, you guys have to be able to work together or lives may be lost. It makes sense in the end. They're going to be ninjas, not just regular civilians. And so Kakashi ends up telling them they pass, but he actually does kind of look at Sasuke this time. He's just like, Sasuke, you refuse to work with your teammates, and you're going to have to get over that pride of yours, because the only thing that held you back there was you. And honestly, that was the worst thing Kakashi could have said to Sasuke, because that just wounded Sasuke's pride so much. And so, for the next, 2 or 3 weeks, they're taking on E-rank, D-rank missions. And eventually, Naruto actually stops Hiruzen when they're finishing a mission. And it's just like, hey, I think we are ready for a more dangerous mission. Like a C-rank maybe. Because I don't think we'll get any stronger or any more proper experience without doing said things. Because, obviously, one thing that forms a ninja is experience. And Hiruzen is actually listening to Naruto's argument, and he's just like, alright, Kakashi, what do you think? Do you think they're ready? And Kakashi is like, I do believe that they are ready. And so Hiruzen's alright, so here's your mission, call in the bridge builder, and things remain relatively canonical, except in this timeline, he kind of insults Sakura instead of Naruto, because Naruto is actually pretty tall. He's taller than Sasuke and Sakura, and he's actually a big guy too. So, anyways, Tazuna kind of looks at him and is impressed. So the next morning, they end up meeting at the entrance of the village, and they're getting ready to leave. And Sasuke is just like, so why do you need protection? What's actually happening? Because Sasuke is just questioning things for the whole reason of questioning things at this point. After his pride is wounded, he just can't stop questioning everything. And he's been doing it for the last couple of weeks. And Tazuna is just like, some people don't want the bridge built, but they're only some weaker ninjas. I just cannot fight. And so they continue walking on, and that's when they actually walk by a puddle, and Naruto is the first to actually notice it, which kind of shocks Kakashi. He's just like, he has surprising instincts. And Naruto's like, wait, there's something off about that puddle. It hasn't rained in days. And that's when, next thing you know, the demon brothers come out of the puddle, and they're coming for them. And that's when you see Naruto actually duck the chain and grab one of them by their face and slam them into the ground. While Kakashi does his thing, aka die, quote unquote, to the other one. And Sasuke pieces up the other one. So then, Naruto's like, alright, Kakashi, I know you're not dead if I was able to piece them up, and so was Sasuke. And Kakashi's like, You caught me. And so Kakashi is like, I just wanted to see how you guys would fare on your own. I'm gonna interrogate these two. And so the interrogation happens, and that's when Kakashi looks at Tazuna. He's just like, this isn't just a regular escort mission. I thought you said these ninja were weak. No, there's more to this. And that's when Tazuna comes out with the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help him God, you know? So Kakashi wants to turn back, but Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura actually end up convincing him to continue forward. That's when, a little while later, Naruto notices there's a white bunny. That doesn't make sense. It's summer. Why would there be a bunny? And then that's when Naruto senses it along with Kakashi, and they're both like, duck! So everybody ducks, and you just see the giant executioner's blade spin above their head into a tree. And then you see Zabuza and Momochi appear on top of the tree. And then Zabuza, looks down and is like, Kakashi of the Sharingan. And so things remain relatively canonical. I'd like to say things remain canonical, but towards the end, where Kakashi's starting to lose for the first time, that's when Naruto actually uses something that Jion taught him. Jion taught him, sorry. And that's when Naruto used an incomplete version of Hunter Fest. And what that is Bond's move where he zaps strength. So after he does that, Zabuza actually starts to move slower, and he's kind of thrown off guard by this. And that's when Kakashi actually ends up hitting Zabuza and knocking him out. That's when Haku intervenes and things remain canon. They leave, blah blah blah. They go to the village. Kakashi passes out, sleeps for a couple of days, teaches everybody about tree walking. Sakura has the easiest time. Things remain relatively canonical until the bridge builder attack day. Naruto was still heated about the whole Inari thing, so he actually ends up training so much harder than he even did in canon. Because he's already stronger than he was, so it takes a lot more to actually tire him out. And he ends up sleeping in a lot. And that's when he wakes up to the sound of Inari and his mother getting attacked. He runs down the stairs and quickly, knocks out the two attackers. And that's when he realizes that everybody's gone to the bridge. So he quickly makes a clone, leaves it there, and instead of running, because, he's slightly more lazy in this timeline, he's just like, I'm still a little tired, I'm gonna take a little nap. He actually has his guardian there, and he hops on it and has it float him over there while he just closes his eyes and relaxes a little bit before he gets into a fight. Because he can already sense that something's going on over at the bridge. So he arrives, and he sees that Sasuke is doing relatively fine for the time being, so he goes to help Kakashi. And the battle is, still going fairly similar to canonical until Sasuke is about to get seriously injured by Senbon. That is when Sakura runs in and actually tanks the hit for Sasuke. And as she's falling, she sees the back of Naruto and sees that it has the Uzumaki symbol. And she's like, the Uzumaki. And she passes out. That's when Sasuke actually awakens his One-Tomoe Sharingan, but it's at the peak of a One-Tomoe. Because he's actually kind of crushing on Sakura at the time. And so Sasuke ends up beginning to be able to keep up with the Senbon relatively well. But that's when Naruto turns around and sees what has happened. And that's when his spear begins to awaken. Because currently all his spear has ever been is in Guardian mode. It's not able to do much other than take a couple hits. And he's been trying to not rely on it too much due to what Jion said to him at the tree. And so Naruto then ends up using his spear and turning it into spear chastiful form increase. And that's when you see 1,000 daggers just spinning around Naruto, and he just sends them straight at the crystal mirrors. And honestly, they're not doing that much, but the buildup of so many daggers just hitting the crystal mirrors ends up beginning to break them one by one by one by one. And then when Haku ends up leaving the mirrors to get away from it, that's when you see Sasuke end up hitting Haku with a fireball jutsu and pinning them to the ground. And that's when Haku turns his head and sees Zabuza about to get pierced by a Chidori. And like in canon, ends up escaping from Sasuke and taking that Chidori himself instead of Zabuza. And Zabuza pretends he doesn't care, but honestly, in this timeline, Naruto's a lot more polite with his words, but it still cuts Zabuza deeper than any knife ever could. His own words, if you want to quote the anime. And so Zabuza ends up taking on Gato and his men, dying in the process but killing all of them. And that's when they lay Zabuza and Haku to rest next to each other. They then end up finishing the build of the bridge and returning back to the village. And so we then cut to Sakura in the library after the whole, recount of the mission to Hiruzen. But we already knew that happened, because that's canonical anyways. So, after the whole recount, Sakura's in the library, and she's just reading up on the Uzumaki. She's like, alright, the first Hokage's wife was an Uzumaki. It was also the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. And that's interesting. The Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails? Is there a reason behind that, I wonder? And then she also reads that the main trait of the Uzumaki, visually, is the fact that they all have red hair. And so she begins to question, why doesn't Naruto have red hair? But she just ignores it for the time being and decides that she wants to go train. And the reason she's decided this, that she's going to train 10 times harder, is because her near-death experience on the bridge. And so she's practicing her taijutsu, her shuriken stuff. She's practicing everything so that she can keep up with Naruto and Sasuke. Though she's realized something about Naruto. His power can be overwhelming at times due to this weapon that he carries. And so Sakura is also questioning a little bit about the weapon, but she just moves on from it for now and decides that training is more important and keeping up is as well. After this, that's when Hiruzen talks to Kakashi and mentions the Chunin exams, that he wonders if Kakashi thinks they're ready. And Kakashi honestly says, yeah, they did really well as a team at the Bridge Builder mission against a stronger opponent. And Hiruzen also asks Kakashi then, so how has Naruto been faring? And Kakashi is like, Naruto is actually really strong for a Genin. He honestly, strength-wise, he's probably high Chunin and low Jonin, but something's holding him back. I just don't know what it is. And so Hiruzen takes what Kakashi said and just basically runs with it. And Kakashi ends up going to Team 7. It's just like, the Chunin exams are happening soon. Would you guys like to participate? I'll leave the choice up to you if you guys think that you are ready. And so they all say, yeah, I'm ready, stuff like that. That's when Kakashi is like, alright, I'll let the Hokage know. So then the day of the Chunin exam arrives, and that's when they're going into the building, and that's when Rock Lee stops them. And this is something I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, but Naruto was actually Rookie of the Year in this timeline. He was smarter and stronger than Sasuke. And so Rock Lee is like, I want to fight you, Naruto Uzumaki! I don't know why I said Uzumaki like that, but yeah. And Naruto in this timeline is like, no, I don't think it's a good idea to fight right now. We're about to begin the Chunin exams. I need to preserve my energy, and truthfully, I think you should as well. And Rock Lee is like, you make a fair point! And so they end up going their separate ways for the time being. And that's when they're going up the stairs and they notice something's off. Naruto immediately realizes there's a lot of chakra going on around here. There's some sort of genjutsu in play. So that's when he takes Sakura and Sasuke, who also noticed something was off but couldn't quite put their finger on it, and takes them away from there into the proper room. And that's when they do the test. The test remains relatively canonical. Naruto doesn't need to cheat though because he's smart enough. And the final question, they all pass. And so now we're at the Forest of Death, and Anko just pulling up like, you guys ready? And Ibisu telling her to, screw off because she's interrupting something. Anyways, then we just transfer to Naruto and them being talked to by Anko and being told about how the Forest of Death part works. And it all makes sense. And there's no real questions. So then we go into the Forest of Death, and things remain fairly canonical. Naruto ends up needing to use the washroom, and he walks away. They have a passcode and everything. And so when Naruto, quote unquote, returns, he says the passcode correctly and everything, and that's not what kind of shoots Sasuke off. Naruto isn't that quiet. Randomly appearing behind them was really suspicious, in his opinion. And so he turns around and he's just like, "Who are you?" And that's when the ninja is just like, "Oh, so you could tell I wasn't your teammate?" And that's when Sasuke is like, "Full honesty, you're far too weak to be him." And that actually kind of pisses off the ninja. And that's when he immediately attacks Sasuke, but Sasuke has no difficulty piecing up him and his team. And that's when we cut to Naruto, who's still taking a leak. And that's when a giant snake appears, trying to attack Naruto. But Naruto had finished his pee at that point. And Naruto ends up hopping on his spear guardian and flying above the snake, getting away from his first bite, and starting to go back towards his team. And that's when he notices there's a large amount of chakra heading towards his team. And it's a jutsu. It's a wind jutsu that's headed towards Sasuke and Sakura. And so he ends up arriving in the nick of time and uses his guardian to like block the blow somewhat, so they don't actually go flying, but they do get pushed back significantly. And that's when you see Sasuke start to panic because you notice Orochimaru's bloodlust. And Naruto, he flinches, but it's not super crazy for him because one of the things Jian taught Naruto is how to resist bloodlust. He would hit Naruto with a lot of bloodlust, and Naruto would have to get used to it. So Naruto still gets hit by it, and he flinches, but it doesn't stop him cold turkey. It doesn't. So Naruto is still trying to fight Orochimaru and protect the others, and that's when Sasuke ends up stabbing himself in the leg, and Sakura ends up actually doing the same. And so when Sasuke ends up freezing up again in a second when the snake attacks him, and you see Naruto actually jump in front of the snake, but you notice that Naruto's eyes have begun to turn red. And Sakura notices this, and that's when mentally it clicks for her. She's like, he's the host of the Nine Tails. It's beginning to make sense. And so Sakura, just ignores things for a time being, even though she's figured this fact out. It's just like, we have to focus on Orochimaru. However, Orochimaru is not going to have much difficulty with them. Even though Naruto's insanely powerful, and he can use increase and stuff, there's just not much they can do. Orochimaru just overpowers all three of them. He's a legendary Sannin. And so they end up getting boxed up. Orochimaru puts the curse mark on Sasuke. And Naruto ends up being barely conscious, but able to continue to use his Spirit Spear, where he carries him and his teammates to a tree with a little hole in the bottom to let them rest. And that's when Naruto kind of pulls some sort of Zoro moment, where he stands in front of the tree with his arms crossed, bleeding all over his body, just waiting, guarding his teammates. And that's when the sound team starts to pull up. And Naruto ends up calling his spear. And even though he's struggling to stay conscious, he knows that his teammates have nobody to defend them. And that's when he actually ends up unlocking Spirit Spear Form 6, Yggdra Cloth. And what it does is it actually puts an entire full suit of armor onto Naruto for him to have resistance to attacks, and he ends up killing them, unfortunately, because he doesn't have much of a choice. And if he doesn't kill them, he understands that he will die. And if he dies, there's no one left to protect his teammates. So he ends up actually killing the entire sound team in this timeline. The armor begins to crack during the fight, but it is such a strong armor that they don't actually manage to end up piercing it. And unfortunately, Naruto's just kind of too strong, where he ends up no-diffing them, truth be told. A half-asleep, severely injured Naruto ends up no-diffing the sound team. And that's when the other of the Konoha 12 arrive to notice what Naruto has done. And they're like, "Are you okay?" And Naruto, he knows they won't kill him worst case scenario, they'll just take his scroll and leave. He just kind of passes out. And ironically, that's when Sakura ends up actually waking up. It's just like, what happened? And she notices that Naruto is just kind of passed out on his flying pillow. I have to retcon something. It wasn't Form 2 Guardian. It was actually just default form pillow. That was my bad. That's a little retcon. Continuing. So the other teams actually just end up leaving them alone. And Sakura ends up trying her best to take Sasuke and Naruto with her. They end up eventually making it to the tower because they did end up with the other scroll from the Sound team. They pass the Forest of Death part of the exam. And that's when they have the beginning of the one-on-ones. This happens several days later because how many people were severely injured and the fact that Orochimaru had been spotted. And they knew that was not a good situation. Sasuke's curse mark was sealed, and all that remains the same. And so, we continue on to the beginning of the 1v1 battles, before we continue on to the 1v1 battles, I would like to reiterate the Sound team is dead, so the 1v1s are going to be slightly different. Anyways, the first battle is Sasuke versus Yoroi. And Sasuke is having a lot of trouble at first until eventually Yoroi ends up missing where he originally intended and ends up hitting Sasuke's curse mark, which begins to absorb some of the chakra from it and ends up knocking out Yoroi. That's about it. Sasuke did not get disqualified because it wasn't his fault. Then we have Shino versus Choji. I don't think it'd be that interesting of a fight. I do think Shino would just defeat Choji relatively easily. Then we have Kankuro versus Misumi. Kankuro wins. Sakura versus Ino. Sakura ends up placing a weak-ish seal, but strong enough to keep Ino out of her head on herself. So Ino has a lot more trouble, and Sakura does win. Not by a lot, but does win. Then we have Temari versus Tenten. Tenten's worst possible matchup. Temari does defeat her. Shikamaru doesn't end up having anybody to go against, so they end up just putting him through because the uneven number of people. And then we have Naruto Uzumaki versus the one, the only Kiba Inuzuka. Alright. I don't think you actually need me to go over this fight. We know Naruto bodies this motherfucker. This is not a question. Then we have Hinata versus Neji, which remains canonical, as well as Gaara versus Rock Lee. And the last fight doesn't happen because, the Sound team is dead. And so, anyways, we then move on to, after the fights, Naruto yelling at Neji about what he had done to Hinata. And Hinata actually apologizes to Naruto for losing. And Naruto's like, it's not your place to apologize. You did fine. You did great. I'll tell you one thing. I will hit the brakes off that man to avenge you, Hinata. That's some, LW, game there, but we'll see. So, anyways, Naruto then, is just really angry. He walks out. Sasuke doesn't get to follow him because Kakashi takes him away to seal his curse mark once again. And Naruto and Sakura end up talking, and Sakura understands why Naruto is angry. But she explains to Naruto that the only way he's going to beat Neji is if he works hard and trains. But after all these fights, they were both really tired and they kind of just wanted to relax. So they end up going to the hot springs. Sakura's gone into the women's side, Naruto's gone into the guy's side. And that's when he looks over and he notices a pervy old man looking over the thing. And that's when he actually jumps up and punches him. It's like, stop peeping on those women, you pervert. So that's when all the women hear it and they all quickly get out of the bath and just go get dressed and leave. And that's when Jiraiya's like, how dare you, you kid? And then that's when he looks at Naruto. He's like, oh. And he understands that Naruto is obviously his godson. And so Jiraiya actually looking at Naruto, instead of, making Naruto do all that shit he did in canon, he actually offers to teach Naruto, train him. And Naruto's like, why would I want to be trained by a pervert like you? And That's when Jiraiya introduces himself as the Toad Sage of Mount Myoboku. That's when Naruto's like, you expect me to believe that you're a Sannin? And Jiraiya's like, come on, you can sense how strong I am. You know I'm one of the strongest in this village, you can sense it. Don't act like you can't. And Naruto's like, fine, you're kind of right, but still, why were you peeping on those women? And that's when Jiraiya's like, research. And that's when Naruto's just kind of like, I don't even want to know more. But Naruto thinks about it. He's just like, one of the legendary Sannin training me? That's an opportunity. That's like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so Naruto takes Jiraiya up on the offer. Now, Jiraiya this timeline doesn't feel the need to force Naruto to get the Nine Tails chakra because he can already see how strong Naruto actually is. But that's when he notices that he can sense Naruto's strength, but there's something wrong with this chakra. He's like, it's even worse than it was when Kushina had the Nine Tails. And that's when Jiraiya looks at Naruto. He's like, Naruto, could I see your stomach for a moment? And Naruto's like, why? He's like, I just want to look at that seal. And that's when he notices that there's another seal, a seal that doesn't belong there. And that's when he realizes this is Orochimaru's handiwork. And that's when he looks at Naruto. He's like, have you encountered Orochimaru? And Naruto, he admits that he has. And he got completely destroyed in the fight. And Jiraiya's like, you're lucky to be alive. And that's when Jiraiya is just like, so anyways, and then you just see him immediately shove his 5 fingers into Naruto's stomach to undo the seal. And Naruto's just completely winded. Like, it takes him out, basically. Naruto drops to his knees, unable to breathe for a few seconds. Jiraiya's then like, I'm sorry, Orochimaru had placed another seal on you. I'm shocked that you survived. And Naruto's like, I know he did. And that's when Naruto is just kind of like, if it hurt this much when he took it off, how did I even remain conscious during the Forest of Death? Because Naruto is even kind of shocked thinking back, because he knew what kind of pain he was in the Forest of Death. Yet he remained conscious and protected his team. And so Naruto ends up explaining everything that happened to Jiraiya, and Jiraiya's kind of just shocked. And that's when he realizes that the power coming off the spear has nothing to do with chakra. It's a whole different kind of power. Fascinating. He's fascinated. But that's when he's like, Naruto, would you like to learn a jutsu? And that's when Naruto's like, yeah, of course. And so Jiraiya tells Naruto, alright, this is what we call the summoning jutsu. He bites his finger, does the blood, does the hand signs, and summons a toad. And Naruto, before Jiraiya can even have him sign a contract or anything, tries it. And then there's just like greenish, I think there's some black on it, type of wolf thing with no eyes. And Naruto's like, what the hell is that? And even Jiraiya's shocked. He's like, I don't know. And that's when it barks at Naruto. And there's some sort of like instinctual link between the two. And Naruto begins to understand that this is going to be his summon. Like, he's like, I don't need to sign a thing with the toads. This is my summon. And so, anyways, Naruto decides for the next, month, since he's confident in his strength, that he wants to practice his summoning jutsu and learn everything he can about his summon, who he named Oslo, because it didn't previously have a name. And that's when he remembers Sakura mentioning that she wanted to learn something about seals, and Naruto looks at Jiraiya. He's like, Pervy Sage, I have a friend who wants to learn more about seals. Would you be willing to teach them? And that's when Jiraiya's like, hell no. And that's when Naruto's like, well, then I might have to tell everybody that you were perving on this friend who is 13 years old while she was in the bath. And Jiraiya's like, all right, I'll do it. I wasn't perving on her, but I get your point. And so Naruto actually ends up finding Sakura later that day, and it's just like, do you remember when you told me that you wanted to learn more about seals? Well, I found someone who would be able to train you on such things. And Sakura's like, really? And that's when he introduces Sakura to Jiraiya, and he's like, he is supposed to be my master for this month. However, I have another thing I have to do, so I asked him if he would train you. And she's like, you got one of the legendary Sannin to train me? Thank you, Naruto! And so, for the next month, Naruto figures out how his summon works, and Sakura practices her seals. And that's when we approach the date of the final exams. The first battle will actually be Sakura versus Shino. And this battle is actually relatively closer than one might think due to Sakura's month of training with seals. Jiraiya did teach her a lot, however, there's not really an efficient way to end up using seals against Shino's bugs currently. And so Sakura is currently having a nice bit of trouble, but by the end, they're both relatively injured. However, Sakura does end up losing the match. And then we have a canonical match, Tamari versus Shikamaru, and that just ends the same way. Shikamaru forfeits because he's out of chakra. And like in canon, it's supposed to be Sasuke versus Gaara. However, Sasuke isn't there, so Naruto just suggests that he fights Neji first, so that Sasuke has more time to arrive. So then Naruto goes against Neji, and this fight is way closer than in canon, in my opinion. Like, Naruto only won due to pure luck, in my opinion, canonically. So, in this timeline, it's way closer. Neji and Naruto are actually on par with each other, if Naruto is not stronger. And so, once they get into the ring, Naruto's first order of business is setting his spear to form 6 Yggdra cloth to give himself armor, because he understands that Neji's whole thing is shutting off his chakra pathways. And once he does that, Naruto will begin to have a lot of trouble. And so once he puts down on that armor, he's actually caught off guard by Neji, because while he was focused on changing his spear form, he forgot that the battle had begun. And Neji is already pulled up into that close range motion, and Naruto barely dodges the first hit from the gentle fist. And so Naruto is trying to keep his distance because he's not in a good situation in a close range fight. He knows, realistically, Neji is far better at hand-to-hand combat than himself. And so, eventually, after a whole lot of dancing around each other, Naruto trying to stay out of range and Neji keep pushing forward, and Naruto not actually using any long-range jutsus, because if he were to, his only really long-range thing he knows how to currently use is his spirit spear, and currently that's what's protecting him from Neji. So eventually, Neji does manage to catch Naruto and starts to hit him with the 64 palms, which leaves Naruto in a very sticky situation. You know, you hear 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms, 64 palms, and on the 64th palm, you just see the armor break off Naruto, and Naruto start to, like, fly backwards. But that's when, in the nick of time, Naruto changes his spear to a neutral form, Pillow, to catch him before he falls out the arena. And Naruto he's not 100% sure what to do at this point. So he ends up setting his spear to form 5 increase, with a bunch of daggers flying around him, so he could hopefully get Neji. But the problem is, as soon as Naruto starts sending the daggers towards Neji, he immediately goes into a palm rotation and starts deflecting almost all of the daggers. There's a couple that still manage to cut his hands, but outside of those, Neji has deflected them all. And Naruto knows if he keeps going for form increase, that he will eventually win after wearing out Neji. However, he also understands that he can't keep it up forever. He's not used to using his spirit spear so much. And so, Naruto then opts to take advantage of Neji being distracted by the palm rotation to try and sneak up on Neji elsewhere. So, anyways, to sneak up on Neji, he does the same thing he does in canon, where he actually kind of digs a hole underground after leaving a clone up top. So after the spears, the daggers stop going after Neji for a second, and Neji kind of lets up his palm rotation, he sees Naruto, and Naruto's clone starts running towards him. And Neji's like, "Are you stupid? Why would you run straight towards me like that?" So he immediately hits his clone with a powerful air palm and sends Naruto's clone flying, and then you see a poof. And, you know, in old canonical fashion, you see Naruto come straight out of the ground with a nice uppercut. Now, the difference in this timeline is Naruto's not completely beat up. He does knock Neji out with this punch, and Naruto is injured, but it's not like the same as canon where he's like completely battered and he can barely stand and then he passes out right after. No, he ends up walking off because he's completely awake. And Neji's whole family situation remains pretty canonical. And the entire stands are kind of shocked because even though Naruto was missing for several years, they still don't like him because he is the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. For the Sasuke versus Gaara fight, things remain relatively canonical due to nothing really changing. Sasuke is currently stronger than he was in canon. However, he still makes Gaara bleed. Gaara has a tweak out. And then the whole Genjutsu is placed. However, Naruto is actually immune to Genjutsu due to the blessing of the Fairy King. So he's not actually affected by it. And so Kakashi and Guy tell Naruto to go after Sasuke and Gaara and help Sasuke fight Gaara. Sasuke's ego has been checked several times, but he still has a bit of a one, so he wants to do the fight by himself, but he isn't as antagonistic as he was in canon. Sakura actually chooses to remain behind because she understands that due to her exhaustion after fighting Shino and stuff like that, and that she'd probably be more useful helping the Chunins and Jonins protect the civilians, she opts to stay back and not chase Sasuke. Eventually, Naruto then catches up with Sasuke, who's currently fighting Gaara, and he tells Sasuke to let him help. Sasuke is really against this for no real good reason. So when Sasuke actually gets injured here, Naruto has no choice but to protect Sasuke by himself. So he performs his summoning jutsu and summons Oslo. As soon as Oslo is summoned, he actually perceives that there's danger afoot. He notices Gaara, and so Oslo actually ends up turning really big. And as he turns really big, that's when Gaara finally just hits the dead possum jutsu and knocks himself out, and the One Tails appears. So currently it's Naruto on top of a big Oslo, which is still smaller than the One Tails by a decent chunk. And Sasuke unconscious on Oslo with Naruto, and they're fighting the One Tails. Naruto still has his spirit spear, so he tries to think of an idea. And he's fighting the One Tails. Oslo is able to dodge most of the attacks, but eventually they do get hit. Naruto goes flying, he's injured, Sasuke goes flying, and Oslo also gets hurt. Naruto then, proceeds to unlock the next form of his Spirit Spear. Spirit Spear Form 3. Fossilization. So he throws his two-headed spear into the One Tails, and the One Tails starts turning into stone. It's no longer sand. And the One Tails is like, what's going on? Hey, get that off of me. And before the One Tails is like completely solidified, because Naruto, he doesn't want to kill Gaara. Naruto decides to take this opportunity of the One Tails being distracted by being turned to stone, and he gets Oslo to actually attack the One Tails too. Naruto takes advantage of the situation and tries to get up to the top of the One Tails to wake up Gaara. However, the One Tails does notice what's going on and begins to try and stop Naruto. However, before the One Tails could stop Naruto, Naruto actually calls his spear back to him and changing it to its pillow form and floats up to Gaara, and then he proceeds to, change it back and stab it back into Shukaku. Then he proceeds to start beating the shit out of Gaara, trying to wake him up. Eventually, he does wake up Gaara, the One Tails is put back away, and Gaara is, really injured. And Naruto walks up to Gaara, and Gaara's just like, stay away from me. Stay away. But Naruto, he doesn't even do anything to Gaara. He actually just hugs him, and Gaara is kind of shocked. And he's just like, I won't kill you. Because if you turn around, you have two siblings who love you and don't want you to die here. So this is your last chance. I hope you make the most out of it. And then he proceeds to let Kankuro and Temari actually take Gaara away. When Naruto, Sasuke, and Sasuke both end up returning to the village on Oslo, they see a lot of people looking really down in the dumps. And Naruto has an idea of what has occurred. For the entire village to all be down like that. And Naruto asks Kakashi what happened. And that's when Kakashi informs Naruto that Hiruzen has died. Naruto didn't hate Hiruzen, but like he didn't love him. He's still a little sad, but like it's not like OG Naruto who is like crushed by it. Because Naruto he didn't really have as close of a bond with Hiruzen as OG. Not saying that OG did, but you could tell that they had some sort of bond before Hiruzen died. But like this Naruto, not really, because he was missing for several years and this and that. But so they all find out Hiruzen's dead. There's the whole funeral and everything. And that's when Jiraiya actually approaches both Sakura and Naruto and asks them, "Would you like to come on a trip with me to get the 5th Hokage?" And Sakura and Naruto are kind of shocked. And during this period of time, Sasuke is going to be with Kakashi. And that's because he's in the hospital and he can't actually leave at the time anyway. So Jiraiya decides to just take Sakura and Naruto with him. He has an idea for Sakura, as well as for Naruto. He explains to Naruto that he believes that that spear of his has several other forms, and he wants Naruto to actually kind of focus on unlocking the rest of the forms on his spear, if it has any. And for Sakura, he mentions that he has a book from the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze. It's a diary of sorts that he's willing to give her because he believes that she can learn some of the sealing jutsus that he used. And Jiraiya actually says that she's so proficient with chakra that he believes when it comes to sealing jutsu, she could be one of the best there is. And that's why he's giving this book to her, because there's some advice on a forbidden leaf jutsu and how to learn it. And Sakura is kind of shocked. She's like, "Are you sure it's okay to give me this? Like, are you really sure you should be giving me this book?" And Jiraiya's like, "Nobody needs to know if you don't tell them." And Sakura honestly chuckles a little bit. It's just like, okay. And she takes the book and she starts reading through it, and she does end up reading the name Kushina Uzumaki somewhere. And she's like, "Oh wow, he was married to an Uzumaki?" But doesn't really put 2 and 2 together yet. And so, anyways, she continues, going through it and researching the book. And Jiraiya's helping her with some of the ceilings in there, outside the Flying Raijin. And Naruto is still learning more spear forms. The only one he actually manages to unlock during this period of time is Form 2 Guardian. And that's obviously the Pillow Bear form. Anyways, eventually they make it to this town, and Naruto is sitting in the hotel because he had nothing to do, really. Sakura was gone out to get some groceries. Jiraiya was doing his research. And so Naruto was alone in the hotel when he gets a knock at the door, and he's like, "Who is it?" And that's when he opens the door to see Itachi, and he already knows that he's in a dangerous situation as soon as he sees Itachi. So his first reaction, the first thing he does is Spear Chastiful Form 2 Guardian, and puts it in the way and just starts trying to get out of there. Because unlike Naruto normally, who couldn't escape, he has some way to increase the distance between him and the other. However, while it may have distracted Itachi for a second, Kisame just went through the wall and went straight for Naruto. Naruto is still trying to keep his distance, and he makes a few shadow clones to try and help him out. Eventually, obviously Kisame and Itachi have the upper hand, and they're kind of starting to get Naruto when Sasuke appears yelling at Itachi. And this shit is the exact same thing that happens in canon, bro. Itachi's arm just gets snapped like a twig. Yeah, it was unfortunate. And like in canon, Jiraiya comes back, and all that happens. Itachi tells him to get out of there that they should get out of there because Jiraiya could take both of them on. Stuff like that. And so Naruto does end up surviving this. Sasuke's wounded pride mixed with his hatred for Itachi and his ego being a little more in check, nothing really does change. He still has a genuine thing where he kind of just wants to leave, especially since the curse mark scenario and all that. But we'll get into that after this retrieval mission. They continue exploring, looking for Tsunade, while Naruto trains with his spirit spear, and Sakura is training with seals. Now, she's learned how to amplify her physical power, as well as amplify her physical defense with seals. So she's a lot tankier and does a lot more damage. She also gained the ability to make seals that actually cause some sort of like slight gravity distortion. And she's been placing them on her legs, torso, arms, all over her body to weigh herself down. Because as much as she's really proficient in chakra and everything, she also just wants to become genuinely physically stronger. Because it'll be easier for her to keep up with the others. So she's doing all this, so she moves a lot slower than she normally would. So things do take slightly longer, but only by like a few hours. And they do end up finding Tsunade in the same place anyways. Things remain relatively canon. Tsunade disrespects the title Hokage. Naruto does get upset because if you remember in the prologue part of this, I did mention that Jayon did tell Naruto about his heritage. So he knows who his parents are. And to him, it's disrespecting him and his own father by insulting the Hokage the way Tsunade is. And so Naruto challenges her to a fight, and he says, if I can beat you, you have to. And Tsunade is just like, you're a kid. If you can land one hit on me, I'll go back and be the Hokage. And so Naruto gets in his fighting stance, and that's when you hear Naruto go, Hunter Fest. And Tsunade is still very strong, but she's kind of thrown off. She feels slightly weaker. She's drunk. She feels weaker. And that's when Naruto sends his Spirit Spear and Form Guardian to go and attack Tsunade, which she completely counters. But while she's countering his Spirit Spear, Naruto actually pulls up behind her and punches her in the back. And technically, that's all he needed. She said one punch, and that's what he did. But during this period of time, Sakura's kind of thinking, and she's really not impressed with what she's seeing from Tsunade. Because she's just a gambling drunkard, stuff like that. And later that night, she actually brings this up to Jiraiya before Jiraiya goes back out to talk to Tsunade. And Jiraiya's like, don't worry about it. I'm sure once she comes back and becomes Hokage, she'll be way better than she is currently. And she'll be able to teach you far better than I ever could. And that's because obviously the 100 sealings is a type of seal. So, the 100 healings is a type of seal, so you know. Makes sense. And so anyways, Jiraiya heads back out and he talks to Tsunade at the bar. And that's when Tsunade actually drugs Jiraiya. Because she has a meeting with Orochimaru. Suzune actually comes to Naruto and Sakura trying to wake them up to get them to go get Jiraiya because Jiraiya won't wake up. And eventually, Jiraiya does eventually wake up. And that's when they all immediately head to that open field where Tsunade actually is getting pieced up by Kabuto currently. And so, Naruto jumps into the fray. And truthfully, he could beat Kabuto, but he would still have a little bit of trouble. So, Sakura actually ends up joining Naruto in the fight while Tsunade and Jiraiya fight Orochimaru. And Sakura manages to get a couple hits onto Kabuto, and she's learned how to implement, like Minato did with his Flying Raijin, her gravity seals in her hits. So whenever she hits something, that seal appears on top of it. So then they can no longer move as easily as they previously did, which will throw them off and make it easier for Naruto to beat Kabuto. Eventually, things remain relatively canonical. They both escape Orochimaru and Kabuto. Tsunade thanks them. Tsunade gives Naruto the necklace because she appreciates everything he's done. This, and that. And then they return to the village. So then they make it back to the village. Tsunade is appointed as the 5th Hokage, and Tsunade has officially taken Sakura on as a student. Sakura tells Tsunade that her main focus currently is seals, and Tsunade is like, that is great because do you see this little diamond on my forehead? That is what I call the 100 healings. It's a seal where I've been implementing healing chakra for a long time, and it basically makes you immortal for a period of time. Sakura says that it thinks that's fascinating, and that's when Tsunade says, I'd like to teach you healing jutsu before we move back into your seals, because I believe you could be the strongest medical ninja to ever exist currently, or ever really, except like the Sage of Six Paths. And Sakura is like, you really think that? And Tsunade is like, yeah, I think you could be one of the strongest medical ninjutsu users, and just one of the strongest people to begin with. And I'll teach you how I make my body sturdy and my punches strong, so that should amplify your strength again after the strength you already have shown me. And Sakura is actually kind of excited knowing that she'll probably have strength that far surpasses Tsunade's even physically and stuff like that. And Naruto is talking to Jiraiya, and Jiraiya is like, I do want to train you on more things, but I have a mission and all this. And so Jiraiya leaves, and he's actually staying in the village. He's just kind of watching Naruto, just see how things are going. That's when Naruto goes to visit Sasuke with Sakura. And Sasuke tells Naruto that he wants to fight him, and basically forces Naruto up to the roof and begins to fight him. Naruto is actually winning in regular hand-to-hand combat. So eventually, Naruto, he doesn't want to hurt Sasuke. So when Sasuke pulls out his Chidori to attack him, Naruto just tries to block it with Guardian. However, since it's Chidori, it actually starts to go through the Guardian. It's like a sharp attack, not a blunt one. And it pierces through Guardian. And it's about to hit Naruto when Kakashi appears, catching Sasuke's arm before it actually hits Naruto. And Kakashi looks at Sasuke with just genuine disappointment. And Sasuke's like, don't you look at me like that. And Kakashi's like, you just almost killed Naruto. He wasn't even trying to hurt you, and you were trying to kill him? What for, Sasuke? Because your pride is wounded? And that's when he actually is just like, alright. And then he takes Sasuke away and ties him to a tree. They have that conversation where Sasuke is like, maybe if I took everyone you loved away, you'd understand how I felt. And then Kakashi looks at him and is like, you're a little late for that, because everyone I've ever loved is already dead. Bro, I don't know what it is about that scene. That scene goes so hard, alright. Sasuke then kind of just shuts up, and then randomly, later on that night, the sound team pulls up and talks to Sasuke, trying to convince him to leave with them. Sasuke, who may have been humbled a couple times, still has his hatred for Itachi and a wounded pride currently. So that night when Sasuke is about to leave, Sakura actually confronts him. She noticed something was off, and she sees that he's about to leave the village, and she looks at Sasuke. It's just like, don't leave, please. And that's when Sasuke is just like, I have to. I need to become stronger. And he's just honest with her. He's just like, I can't keep doing this. I need to kill Itachi. And Sakura's like, I can't let you go, Sasuke. This isn't the right option for you, bro. This isn't the right option for you. And so Sakura actually tells Sasuke, I'll fight you if I have to. I cannot let you leave. And so her and Sasuke end up fighting. However, Sasuke does end up winning. Not by a landslide, but does win. So after he ends up leaving the village while slightly injured, the sound team grabs him and they leave. The next morning, Tsunade catches wind of Sasuke's abandonment of the village, and that Sakura is currently in the hospital after losing a fight to him. And Tsunade is pissed, but she understands the standing of the Uchiha. Even though most of them are dead, they still have one left, and it's a problem if he gets away. So she assembles the current team, like the Konoha 12, like in canon, to send them after. Except they couldn't send Sakura because Sakura was severely injured in this timeline. And so Naruto and them actually go after him. And that's when Sakura looks at Naruto. It's just like, bring him home, please. And Naruto says, I'll try. And so outside of an easier time getting out of Jirobo's dome, everything remains relatively canonical until the final valley fight, where Naruto's standing on Hashirama's head and Sasuke on Madara's. And that's when Naruto tells Sasuke, the only reason I'm not going to kill you here is because Sakura wants me to bring you home. She loves you, man. Why are you doing this to her? And Sasuke is just like, I know. And it's actually kind of honest in this timeline. It's just like, and I do love her, but I need this. I know it's selfish, but this is my only choice. And so that's when they end up fighting. And Sasuke starts tweaking out when he realizes that Naruto is honestly so much stronger than him. Like, Naruto summoned Guardian like locks him while Naruto does a wombo combo. And eventually the curse mark activates on Sasuke. And outside of the whole Guardian grabbing him and stuff, Naruto ends up not being able to do too much because currently he's not really super fast. He's probably a little bit slower than One-Tailed Cloak Naruto in canon. So he's still a little bit slower than Sasuke. He's stronger, and he can still beat Sasuke with a Sharingan that's even at near 2 Tomoe. But as soon as Sasuke starts up with the curse mark and stuff and starts moving too fast, Naruto honestly starts to just get boxed up. And he tries to protect himself with Guardian and stuff, but Sasuke's just moving a little too fast. Eventually, Sasuke hits Naruto straight through the left side of his, or the right side of his chest with a Chidori, leaving Naruto unconscious in the water. And that's when Sasuke just leaves. The hole in Naruto's chest, it does heal due to Kurama's influence, because obviously Kurama doesn't want to die either. And eventually Kakashi arrives and sees the state Naruto is in. And Kakashi knows that Sasuke normally would not be even close to strong enough to do this to Naruto, so he realized that Sasuke has become completely in tune with his curse mark. He brings Naruto back to the village, and that's when they're all kind of just in a state of grief almost because of Sasuke leaving the village. And Naruto is really disappointed in himself for letting his guard down and ending up losing the fight against Sasuke. And Sakura tells Naruto it's not his fault. It's her fault for asking so much of him. And Naruto thanks her because in this timeline, Naruto and Sakura are like best friends and is completely platonic. So Sakura ends up going to Tsunade and deciding that she wants her training to be upped. She wants to go at this 10 times harder. And Naruto ends up leaving the village along the side of Jiraiya to get stronger. Naruto learns a few things during this time skip. One, he unlocks the rest of the forms of his Spirit Spear. He unlocks his Pollen Garden form of Spirit Spear after he lost control of the Nine Tails and injured Jiraiya, that he really wanted to heal Jiraiya so he didn't die. So that's when he unlocked Pollen Garden. Other than that, he kind of just unlocked the others via training. Sakura, on the other hand, has gotten so much stronger because she's implemented the chakra strength and endurance with her seal strength and endurance, and it's just multiplied it by like 3 times. She's like 3 times stronger than she was in OG Naruto Shippuden, like basic Shippuden. And so then she's also learned how to use the Flying Raijin during this 3-year time. She's been practicing seals non-stop, and she's learned how to use the Flying Raijin effectively, especially since as much as her chakra reserves aren't insane, they're still relatively high. And she's has insanely good chakra control. So it's not really a crazy thing. And also, with the Flying Raijin, she's also learned how to implement her own gravity seal. So if she does place a Flying Raijin mark on somebody, it also places the gravity mark on them as well. So they become slower, as well as she can teleport to them. Sakura is going to be really strong in this, so what if, okay? And so Sakura is currently insanely powerful, along with Naruto, who's unlocked every form of Spirit Spear, has improved his taijutsu, has become very proficient with Hunter Fest and taking away the strength of his opponents. As well as during the 3-year time skip, he unlocked his ability, Disaster. Now, there's a couple aspects to this ability, Disaster. Alright? He can completely control things. He has complete control over life, death, and manipulating matter at a molecular level with Disaster. However, what he mainly uses it for is the status promotion of it, and what that does is he can make his scratch into an extremely deep wound. Alright? He can turn minor poisons into lethal toxins, and he can take benign tumors and turn them into cancerous ones. Like, it is an insanely powerful thing, but he mainly just uses it to make his cuts deeper. And that's when we learned that during this time skip, Naruto actually has learned how to wield a spear properly. And not just like his magical control over it, he properly holds the spear and wields it as well. So, Naruto has gotten really strong during this time skip, as well as Sakura. So, they both have gotten insanely powerful. And Sasuke has actually unlocked the Mangekyo Sharingan. I forgot to mention this, but in this timeline, due to his genuine admittance to loving Sakura and abandoning her, to him it was effectively the same as a loss. So he ended up awakening his 3 Tomoe. And during the time skip, Orochimaru actually has Sasuke get close with a Sound Village girl. And the problem with this is the whole reason Orochimaru has done this is because he wants to force Sasuke to kill her after he gains genuine feelings for her, be it friendship or romantic. And that's what occurs. When Sasuke gains really close friendship feelings for her, Orochimaru forces him to kill her. And that's when Sasuke unlocks his MS, standing in her blood. And Sasuke, he'll never be the same after that, honestly. And so Sasuke has also gotten an insane power-up during the 3-year time skip. So I would say Naruto is currently the strongest because Sakura would have a hard time getting to him. Then is Sakura, and then it's Sasuke, but they're still relatively close. Almost dead even. I would say Naruto would be able to defeat Sasuke at this point. I'm changing one thing real quick. Sakura is currently the strongest out of the 3, and that's because of her use of the Flying Raijin plus her gravity seals and all that. So yeah. Naruto is slightly weaker than Sakura, and Naruto is slightly stronger than Sasuke. Sasuke is currently the weakest, and the reason behind that will be that he's blind. He's like half blind. The only reason he can even remotely see is because he's completely doped up on drugs by Orochimaru. And so Sasuke is genuinely weaker than he normally would be with his Mangekyo Sharingan. Then we end the 3-year time skip and Naruto returns. Jiraiya catches up Tsunade on everything that happened. They have the same exam. Kakashi gets no-diffed. It wasn't even a struggle. He just gets no-diffed. And that's when that person comes and tells them that the Kazekage has been kidnapped. Naruto and Sakura immediately leave, like along with Kakashi, sorry. They all leave as fast as they can because it's a matter of time. It's like the first 48 hours type thing. And so they're gone right away, and they're going as fast as they can. Naruto is just chilling though truth be told. He's keeping up with the others while lying down on his pillow. One fact I haven't actually pointed out is in this 3-year time skip, Naruto has unironically become so much more lazy. So yeah, that's a fun fact. They arrive. Kakashi gets attacked because he looks like his father. Things remain pretty canonical for most of this arc, except for basically when they open the door. Sakura has nowhere near as much trouble fighting Sasori, and Naruto has nowhere near as much trouble catching Deidara. It was relatively easy-ish for both of them. They're both on like a Katsuki level. And so Naruto and Sakura quickly finish their battles. They bring the Kazekage's body back, and that's when Granny Chiyo gives her Land of the Living. And so after all that, like in canon, Gaara and Naruto shake hands, and Naruto returns back to the Hidden Leaf with his team. And that's when Naruto and Sakura find out that Sai is not going to be a part of the team, and that Kakashi is being sent out on another mission, so Yamato will be the one in charge. Yamato, Naruto, Sai, and Sakura, they end up going on their mission to the Tenchi Bridge for the whole Sasori situation. That's when Kabuto immediately attacks, and that's when the full-on brawl begins. This remains relatively canonical-ish. Naruto doesn't tweak out, and they kind of escape Orochimaru over fighting him. So yeah, that's what happens there. But overall, it remains pretty close to canon. They end up following Orochimaru actually back to the base, and they run through it like in canon. They eventually find Sasuke, and Sasuke is about to attack them, and that's when Orochimaru actually grabs Sasuke by his arm. He's just like, don't. Unfortunately, you're not strong enough to take them all on. And so Sasuke kind of just backs off because Orochimaru is currently his mentor. He listens to Orochimaru currently. But Sasuke says this isn't the end, and he leaves with Orochimaru. They find out that Asuma died to Hidan and Kakuzu. And Naruto, knowing Shikamaru, like they're not super close, but they're really cool with each other, actually goes to Shikamaru just to check up on him. And Shikamaru tells him he's fine because this is after the whole thing where Shikamaru's father basically forced him to cry. And Naruto's just like, I'm sorry for your loss. And so Naruto then, goes and trains. He trains as hard as he possibly can. And he does get more proficient with his spear. And something I forgot to mention is during the 3-year time skip, he did learn the Rasen. So he was practicing that and maybe seeing if he could add some sort of nature to it or something else. He's just practicing random things. Kakashi does actually not mention to Naruto in this timeline about the Shadow Clones Jutsu's special thing where the memories from the clones go back into the original. So Naruto doesn't really know about this fact, so his training, he just does basic training. He does try to add a release to the Rasengan, but he doesn't really succeed yet. And so, anyways, he's sent on the mission with Team 8 or whatever Team Asuma was, Team Asuma, and he goes on the mission with them to kill Kakuzu and Hidan. Though they all did agree to leave Hidan to Shikamaru, and that fight still remains canon till right now. So that's a canon fight. Kakuzu, he kind of just gets destroyed by Naruto because he just fossilizes him. There's not much Kakuzu can do about that, honestly. Once Naruto hits him, it's over for him. And so after that, Naruto then returns back and finds out that Jiraiya has been sent on a mission, and then gets sent on a mission of his own. And that mission was to find Sasuke once again, because Sasuke had been spotted, and they found out that he's going to go kill Itachi currently. And so they're trying to find Sasuke. They don't end up succeeding. However, during this time, Naruto, Yamato, and Kakashi are in a building when Toby appears. And he tells them Itachi's truth. And Naruto's kind of like, this is not good. This is not good at all. This is not going to be a good end to this story. And that's when Naruto's like, we have to find Sasuke, but unfortunately they couldn't find him, so eventually they do have to return back to the village. And when they return, that's when Naruto is brought to the Hokage's office and informed by the Toads of Jiraiya's death. In canon, the person who ends up cheering up Naruto and saving him basically was Iruka. However, in this timeline, their bond isn't the same, so it's actually Sakura. And during this time, you'll notice that we switch the scene to the fairy tree. And that's because Jaeon, who was sealed inside of it, is soon going to die because the spirit tree has absorbed all of its immortality elixir back into itself due to the damage it took. However, before Jaeon completely dies, it actually takes his consciousness, or his essence more accurately, and puts it inside of Naruto's spear. And the reason it's able to do that is because, of course, the spirit spears are made out of the tree, so it can do that. And put Jaeon's essence inside of the spear. And you won't know what that does until a little bit later. Anyways, eventually Naruto, after moping around for like a day, gets cheered up somewhat by Sakura. He's still depressed, but he's okay, if that makes sense. And so that's when he's informed by Tsunade that she would like him to actually meet her summon, Lady Katsuyu, because Lady Katsuyu has something to tell him about the first Hokage, who also was a descendant of those blessed by the fairies. And so Naruto ends up going to another room and is actually talking with Lady Katsuyu, where Lady Katsuyu actually explains that the sage mode that Hashirama used had nothing to do with her, and it was actually called Fairy Sage Mode. And she does believe that he can use it because she senses the fairy's power from him. And Naruto is then like, really? That's a thing? And Lady Katsuyu then informs Naruto that it is, and it's fairly similar to Toad Sage Mode, though there are very big differences, but it has nothing to do with how it works. It has more to do with the abilities you gain. And so Lady Katsuyu said that she recommended that Naruto actually go and try to learn Fairy Sage Mode alongside the Toads, because they're probably the best chance he has at learning it, since he's the last fairy. And Naruto's like, alright, that makes sense. Okay, I'm down. And so then Naruto, goes with the Toads to Mount Miyoboku and proceeds to spend the next little while learning, Sage Mode. Eventually, Naruto does return when he finds out something is wrong with the Leaf Village. And he returns with a couple of the Toads, not all three, and Oslo. They're all summoned out, basically. And they appear there to see the Leaf Village is gone. And Naruto is pissed when he sees it. And he immediately enters Fairy Sage Mode. And he immediately runs towards the 6 Paths of Pain. And since he decided to 1v6 them out of rage, he's low-key getting boxed up. However, he calls his spear, which he never really realized because he hadn't been using it. But as soon as he started using it, it got bigger. So what had happened is when the tree put Jaeon's essence inside the spear, it actually awoke the spear into its true form. It is more powerful, it is larger, and one thing that we find out about Naruto in his Fairy Sage Mode is that his wings grow significantly. And his Spirit Spear can now use several forms at once, which is really cool. Anyways, so he then gets his spear, and he has Form 2 and Form 7. No. And Form 6 on. He has Form 2 and Form 6 going, which is the Guardian, which he has helping him fight the 6 Paths of Pain. And Form 6 being the Yggdra Cloth, which is his armor. And currently, he's having a much easier time now that he's using his spirit spear, whilst Oslo and the toads are actually fighting the summons from the paths from the summoner path of pain. But the difference is they can actually kill them in this timeline because Oslo's stomach is a void. When whatever he eats just disappears. So if he eats anything, any of the animals, they're gone forever, and that's what their entire plan is. The toads are working to help Oslo eat the animals, and it's working relatively well. Naruto now has the upper hand against the six paths. He ends up destroying the healing path, and then he starts destroying them one by one. Eventually, he fights the Diva path, and he's on par with it, if not slightly stronger. Eventually, he pushes the Diva path into the middle of the forest after a long, drawn-out fight, where then the Diva path then uses planetary devastation, creating a whole ass meteor. And Naruto actually does begin to get sucked into it. However, using his wings along with his spear, he barely manages to begin to escape the gravitational pull of it. So he manages to not actually get caught by this planetary devastation. And the Diva Path is genuinely confused. He's like, how? How did you escape this? I don't understand. And Naruto's like, you don't need to. And destroys the Diva Path. And the truth of the matter is, Naruto is known where Nagato has been this entire time. He can sense him. So he proceeds to go to Nagato. And he might not be as nice as Canon Naruto, but he's still not a bad person. So before he attacks Nagato, he does go for a conversation. He wants to talk. And then they have the whole talk no jutsu thing where in the middle of it, Sakura actually eventually catches up with Naruto and tries to attack Nagato. However, Naruto immediately switches his spear to form 2 Guardian to catch her and stop her from attacking him. And he's like, we're talking. There's no need for violence right now. And Sakura just kind of stands back a little bit and listens instead. And eventually Nagato understands. He's just like, maybe if there ever will be peace, it'll be caused by you. And does his Rene rebirth. After Nagato does this, Sakura actually walks up to Konan and tells Konan that she'd like to place a flying Raijin mark on her in case she ever does something bad again. This is a vision of good faith, really. And Konan just lets it happen. So, after all that, Konan hands Naruto the flowers and he lays them on Jiraiya's grave. Naruto then returns to the village to be praised by the entire village, calling him the hero of the Hidden Leaf. And that's when we find out that Itachi has been killed as well by Sasuke, and Obito has taken Sasuke away. Obito then tells Sasuke the truth, and things remain very canonical, honestly, up until the 5 Kage summit, where at the end, after Obito and Sasuke basically declare world war, basically. Naruto is sent to Turtle Island with Killer Bee, and that's when Naruto actually ends up going to tame the Ninetales. The Ninetales, truthfully, didn't really try to get in Naruto's way too much because Ninetales didn't hate the fairies or anything. They actually kind of respected them. But unfortunately, they were basically extinct. So, as much as Ninetales doesn't like Naruto, he didn't really get in his way throughout this entire story, which is pretty nice for Naruto at least. But when he goes to tame the Ninetales still does not want to be tamed. And in this timeline, Minato and Kushina are there because Minato never had to appear after Naruto loses control. So he gets to meet both of his parents at once and have a conversation with them, explain like his entire life story, everything like that. And it was pretty nice. Naruto ends up taming the Ninetales and unlocking KCM 1. Well, I'm going to say 1.5 because the Ninetales again doesn't hate Naruto. It just doesn't want to be tamed by him per se. And so his Ninetales' cloak is slightly stronger than KCM1's. And so, Naruto now has access to Fairy Sage mode, True Form Spear Chastiful, KCM 1.5, and is in the middle of the war arc. Now, everything Naruto had trouble with in the original, he does not in this. He basically no diffs so many characters. He does not have much trouble with the Reikage, the second Reikage or whatever it was. He doesn't have much trouble with any of the Mizukages or the Tsuchikages. The only person who ends up destroying his clone in this is Madara when he appears. And it's just a no diff for Madara at the time because Naruto's clone, wasn't expecting it. And Naruto understands now there's a powerful figure on the battlefield that even he won't just completely destroy. And so, after that, things do remain relatively canonical once again, up until Madara and Obito getting in Naruto's way. Naruto can't no-diff them, but in this timeline, Naruto actually has Sakura with him. Because as much as Sakura is a required healing ninjutsu user, she's also an extremely powerful combatant. They decided that her combat skills are far more important. And so, which is kind of crazy, they admit that she is stronger than Tsunade. So they actually have Tsunade go back to take her place. And so they end up fighting Obito and Madara, and then they're winning, and then they back up a little bit. They do the whole thing. The Ten Tails is summoned. All that happens, alright? There wasn't much Naruto could do about the Nine Tails. After the Ten Tails was summoned, Naruto was actually able to hold his own alongside Sakura, protecting the Shinobi Alliance. And it remains fairly canonical again, and Minato appears when there's a big tailed beast bomb that even Naruto could not block by himself. He teleports it away because Sakura's flying Raijin is very strong, but she doesn't use it via kunai, she uses it via punch. She has to have been at that place, and she wasn't going to destroy the middle of the continent. And so, after all that, Minato appears in front of Naruto, who is somewhat injured, but not crazy injured. And Naruto's like, "How's it going, Dad?" And Minato's like, "I'm alive." And then the battle continues. Things remain relatively canonical. Then the whole Obito situation happens, where Minato realizes who Obito is, along with Kakashi. Obito absorbs the Ten Tails. However, this time, Obito, honestly, after absorbing the Ten Tails, starts to actually get bodied. And I mean bodied by Naruto. Because Naruto enters his Fairy Sage mode, and just his magic itself is like a Sage energy as well. So his Spirit Spear is not stopped by the fact that it's chakra, because it has nothing to do with chakra. So it penetrates everything, and he ends up using Spirit Spear Chastiful Form 4, which is the giant sunflower that shoots off an insanely powerful beam. And alongside this, he understands that the Shinobi Alliance, most of them are severely injured, so he enters Form 8, Pollen Garden, to heal the entire Shinobi Alliance back up to full. And that's when him and his Spear end up going after Obito's Ten Tails transformation. And Form 3 Fossilization is the next form he sets his Spear into, and sends that shit straight through Obito's chest. Normally Obito would be able to heal it and stuff like that, however, you can't heal being a fossil. And Obito slowly gets turned into stone, and that's when Madara appears, actually kicking the spear out of Obito and taking Obito away from it, because he's like, I can't lose the Ten Tails. Eventually, Madara then takes the Ten Tails from Obito, and then, all that. Sasuke actually in this timeline is helping, but he's not able to do nearly as much. He sees everything that's going on, and he's just like, I could never have hoped to compare with him. He's just too strong. And Sasuke just comes to the realization that his dream is done. He's killed his brother, and he wanted revenge on the Leaf, but it's not feasible. And Sasuke just accepts his current fate. And so Sasuke, accepting that, decides, fuck it, I'm gonna help him out. Him, Naruto, and Sakura end up triple teaming Madara. Unfortunately, they destroy Madara way too quickly. With Naruto, who was already basically no diffing Obito almost. And then him, Sasuke, and Sakura, who are all very strong, they almost no diff Madara. And they destroyed him so fast that Kaguya wasn't even be able to be summoned. I know the ending here hasn't been too detailed. I do plan on having all the current love interests and everything like that to remain the same. Big difference is Neji doesn't die, but Naruto will still marry Hinata, Sakura will still marry Sasuke, all this and that. But yeah, I know I moved very fast, but that's the problem when you have an OP character. Well, for me at least, when I get an OP character, I find it hard to keep the story going, right? So, I did my best, but I didn't want to prolong something that didn't need prolonging. So I hope you all have a great day, and once again, thank you to Weeb for the general idea of how I was going to go about this story. I love you, man, and thank you to Angel as well for helping me with the idea bouncing. Have a great time. See ya. Peace!